Chapter 11. After leaving Fred's house, Chink drove slowly as he planned his next move. He noticed the gas gauge and stopped and filled up the tank. When he pulled out of the gas station, he fell in behind all the morning traffic. The cars were bumper to bumper, so it took him a while to reach the east side. He searched out the address, driving down the street slowly until he came to the apartment building where Tree lived. He parked, got out, and studied the street carefully before going into the building. The steps were old and creaky, and it seemed as if the noise would wake everybody in the building. He grinned as he realized that the people who lived in the building were probably so used to hearing the steps cry out every time someone used them that it was a normal sound to them. He stopped on the second floor and started searching for the apartment number George had given him. He came to the apartment and stood outside, listening. He could hear sounds coming from inside. He leaned closer, putting his ear next to the door. He finally figured out that the sounds were made by children. He knocked sharply on the door. "Who is it?" The question was asked by a woman. Chink hesitated briefly, then said, "It's Fred, honey. I'm looking for Tree." Suddenly the door was opened widely. Before the woman could close it, Chink had stepped inside. She stared at him coldly. "You ain't Fred," she said. "I don't know what Fred you're talking about," Chink replied, "but my name is Fred." He glared at her, then asked harshly, "Where's Tree?" She seemed to make up her mind all at once. "He's in there," she said, and pointed at the bedroom. At the same time, the bedroom door opened and Tree glanced out. He was still in his shorts. He stared angrily around until he saw Chink. Then he ducked back into the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. His sister stared at the action stupidly. Chink broke into a run and hit the door with his shoulder. The thin bedroom door burst open. Chink fumbled at his waist for the pistol as he fell into the room. Tree hadn't wasted any time. He had run straight back to his bed and snatched his own pistol out from under the pillow. One look at Chink and he had quickly realized why the man was there. He didn't know how the man had found him and didn't waste any time thinking about it. He came up with his pistol and fired wildly as Chink came tumbling into the room. His first shot hit the wall, but as Chink fumbled with his gun, Tree took his time and fired again. His second shot hit Chink in the stomach, and his third one hit the huge young man somewhere in his wide chest. Neither shot seemed to have any effect on Chink. It was as if he had been programmed to do something and nothing could stop him. Tree watched with horror as he raised the gun. He started to toss his own gun down and run, but there was nowhere to go but past the man in the doorway. Either that or jump out of the window, and neither idea seemed too good. Chink fired, and the shot took Tree between the eyes. He fell back as if he was clubbed by a giant blow. Chink fired again, then walked over to the fallen body and shot him in the back of the head. He bent down and picked up the pistol Tree had used. He stuck it in his waistband. As Chink started from the room, he stumbled once, then caught himself and made his way out, walking slowly. Tree's sister stood holding her hand to her mouth, her kids around her. Fear was something she had known many times before, but as she saw the expression on the big man's face as he came out of the bedroom, she felt a cold, numbing fear that seemed to chill her very bones. She couldn't move. She could only stare wildly and pray that the man wouldn't kill her and her children. Death was there in his face, but as she watched him make his slow way, she suddenly realized that if she stayed out of his way, he wouldn't bother them. She clutched the children closer and watched him leave. She stood that way, not bothering to go to the window to see how he left. She didn't want to know anything about the man who had walked in and killed her brother, and she was sure, without even looking in the bedroom, that Tree was dead. Something told her that the man who had just left wouldn't have left until after Tree was dead. Whatever Tree had done, he had done to the wrong man. Chink walked down the steps, slowly. He wanted to just lie down somewhere. But the picture of Sandra waiting on him came to his mind, and he continued on his way. He finally got down the steps, ignoring the people who came out of the apartments and stared at him. Before he reached the outside door, he remembered he still carried his gun in his hand. He stuffed the pistol down in his waistband next to the one he had stuck there earlier. The walk to the car was harder than anything he had ever attempted before. Coming down the steps, he had had something to hold on to, but trying to reach the car was another matter. There was nothing to balance himself with, and the pain in his stomach was exploding. He had never felt such a burning fire before. When he reached the car, he fell up against it. He pushed himself upright and managed to get the door open. Then he fell in and stretched out on the seat. Something in his mind warned him that this wouldn't do at all. He sat up and managed to start the motor. As he slipped the car in gear, he glanced at the people who had followed him out of the building. They stood around in a small group staring after him. He drove away slowly, fighting the steering wheel all the way. The drive back across town was a nightmare for him. Whenever he stopped for a red light, he almost passed out. The pain was something he had to cope with. Sandra. He called the name over and over again. Whenever he felt like quitting, he managed to call up an image of her. When Chink stopped for a light at 87th Street, he felt as if the end had come. The front seat of the car was soaked with blood, and his hands were coated with blood. He held his hand to his stomach, trying to push back the pain. If only his woman was there. The cars behind began to blow as the light had changed to green. He glanced up out of a fog of pain. He managed to push his foot down on the gas pedal and pull away from the light. Sandra paced the floor, back and forth. Ever since Chink had left, she had been worrying about him. Suppose he was hurt somewhere. He didn't have anyone he could turn to other than her. She made some coffee but didn't have any taste for it, so she poured it out. She started her pacing again, then glanced out the window and noticed the nosy old caretaker watering the lawn. He watched her staring out of the window, then raised his hand and waved. She didn't want to acknowledge it, but she knew she'd better. He was like an old woman, as she knew from the few times she had spoken to him. He always had some kind of gossip about the other people who lived in the building. The last thing she was interested in was what the other people did. If they left her alone, she sure in hell would leave them alone. He was just a nosy old man, she reasoned, with nothing else to fill an empty life other than an occasional glimpse into someone else's affairs. She turned away from the window in disgust. Glancing out wouldn't bring Chink home. When he finished what he had to do, he'd come home. At 91st Street, Chink knew he was finished. He couldn't go on. The fire inside him was too much. He sat at the wheel, holding his stomach with one hand. Sweat rolled off his brow. He could feel a tear rolling down his cheek. "Now that's too much," he told himself. "Here I am crying like a bitch instead of getting home to my woman." He caught the light and pulled off again. 1 block, 2 blocks, he counted them off in his mind. He caught himself driving crazy with the car going back and forth across the yellow line. He talked to himself, cursing his own weakness. "I ain't nothing but a poot butt," he yelled out so that he could hear the sound of his voice. Again he called on his memory, and a flash of his woman appeared before him. She was waiting, with open arms. He was convinced he was going to die, and he knew then that he couldn't die without seeing his woman again. Just one more time, Lord, he prayed, then wondered about calling on the Lord. It was something he had never done before. The lights began to play tricks on him. He couldn't tell the green lights from the red ones, and more than once he pulled out in front of oncoming traffic. Drivers slammed on their brakes and blew their horns angrily. He drove on, unaware of the confusion he left behind him. Finally, he reached his neighborhood, yet he was unaware of that, too. It was more like an animal instinct that made him turn on his street. He almost passed the apartment building but caught himself and pulled to the curb. The old man in front of the building watched him closely. Chink didn't even see the old man. The pain was becoming so unbearable that he only had room in his mind for one thought: to see Sandra before he died. He was like a hurt animal returning to his lair, searching for the place where he believed he could find peace. He tried to open the car door, but he found that his strength had deserted him. To have come so far and yet not be able to finish the trip. He leaned over, and one of his huge arms fell on the horn. The sound was especially loud on the quiet street. The blare of the horn went on, and Chink had passed out while lying on top of it. The sound of the blaring horn brought Sandra on the run. She noticed the old caretaker moving toward the car. Damn, she cursed to herself as she reached the bottom of the steps. In seconds, she was at the car door. She jerked it open and caught Chink's body as he fell out. "Hold on, honey," she murmured, putting her arm around him. "Chink, you got to wake up!" she yelled in his ear as she noticed the caretaker drawing near. "Chink! Chink!" she screamed at him. What to do? Where to go? She thought to herself. If I go upstairs with him, the goddamn caretaker is sure to call the police. "Move over, honey. Try and roll over," she said into his ear as she shoved at the heavy body. She knew at once that she couldn't go back up the steps. Before they could get up the steps, the police would be at the door. So she got in beside him, pushing as hard as she could. "Could you use some help?" The question came from the side of the car. Sandra glanced up and saw the caretaker staring in. She knew at once that the man had noticed the blood all over the front seat of the car. "No, I don't need any help. I've got to get him to the hospital. He's been in an accident," she said as she started the car up. She tried to move him over another inch so that she could drive. "You want me to go along with you to help you get him out?" the caretaker offered. "No, thank you," she said flatly, and pulled away from the curb. As she looked back in the mirror, she noticed him take a pencil out of his pocket and start to write. "The bastard took the license number," she said, not really speaking to Chink, but just speaking out loud. Sandra, don't let them take me alive, baby. I told you I couldn't stand spending the rest of my life in prison," Chink managed to say as he struggled to sit up. She glanced at him, thankful that he was still alive. "Don't worry, baby. I'll take care of you," she answered with more confidence than she felt. Chink reached over and patted her leg. Then he slumped down on the seat, holding his stomach. "It burns so," he muttered over and over. "It's finished, honey. It's all over. We don't have to worry about our debt anymore." She smiled and patted him on the cheek. "I knew it was, Daddy, when I saw you in the car," she answered. "Chink, I don't know where to go unless I go back to our old apartment. I still got the key, and the rent is still paid up." She glanced down at him to see if that was all right, but he was asleep. She felt under his shirt for his heartbeat, and her hand came from under his shirt full of blood. "Don't worry, Daddy. I'll take care of you," she murmured as she turned a corner. Sandra drove swiftly, cutting in and out of the traffic until she pulled up in front of their old apartment. She parked as close as she could get, then bent down and tried to wake Chink up. She knew it was impossible for her to get him up the steps without some kind of help. "Wake up, Daddy. I need your help. Just wake up long enough to help me get you up the steps. Then I'll take care of that wound." From somewhere in a deep fog, Chink heard Sandra's voice. He knew she was asking him to do something. What was it? Wake up. The words came over and over again. He fought to open his eyes. Slowly, he managed to sit up. A moan escaped from him, but he did sit up. "That's just great, Daddy," she said. Then she got out and went around the car. She opened the passenger door and grabbed one of his arms. She slowly pulled him from the car. She put his arm around her neck and started up the path. They made their way slowly. The steps were a little more difficult, but they managed to get up them. Sandra fumbled in her pocket and found the key. She opened the door and got Chink inside, and he slipped to the floor as soon as they entered.